I swear I love this car already. This car sounds beautiful. Watching Car Nitty, my name is Mizan, and as per the title of the video, I bought a car off a subscriber. Not only was it a subscriber, but it's actually a car that I drove on the channel, so I reviewed it. And I'm sure you can tell by the noise of the car, of the intro clip, it was the R32. If you watch that video, you'll know how much I praised the car, and I spoke about how close I was to buying an R32 at the time I was picking up the M135i. So that was a massive hint in the video that I really loved the car. So no surprise that ultimately I bought the car. And in this video we're going to talk about me buying that car, and also the fact that why I don't have it anymore. That's right, so I bought it in August, and by October the car was already gone. So we're going to talk about that in today's video. So I was over the moon when the owner of the R32 said he wanted to sell the car, because number one, it was a low road tax model, so it was only £340 a year. Most R32s are in fact around £600 a year, so I was over the moon. It was a bucket list car, so when the opportunity was there, I just felt like I had to go for it. There was no hesitation from my part. It was shadow blue, which is one of the best colors I've ever seen on a Mark V. It's so rare, and the way that car was done up was amazing. The feedback on that video has been how good looking that car is and how nicely it was done up, so there's no surprise that I bought that car. As I mentioned, I only owned the car for 3 months, and that's why I'm sat in my M135i recording this video and not in the R32. So what's the story behind it? I sold it to a very nice chap from Hull. His name is PJ Paul. I'll put a link to his Instagram on the screen right now. He's bought the car and he's sort of doing his own little thing with the car, and yeah, you're probably wondering why I sold the car after just 3 months when I really wanted one, right? So the first thing I want to state on the record is I am not rich. YouTube is not paying me at this moment in time, so I don't have the money to buy cars as freely as I would like. That's not possible for me right now. So the M135i is my car, and when the opportunity to buy the R32 came up, I either had to sell my M135i or I'd have to pass up the opportunity for the R32. It was one or the other. I could not have both in my life. So the way I got around that was I spoke to my brother, and we basically went halves on the car. So cost of the car, we went half. Price of insurance, we went half. Road tax, we went half. And we shared the car. Yes, literally shared the car on a weekly basis. So Monday to Sunday he'd have with the car, the other Monday to Sunday will be my car, and vice versa. We just swap. So that way I was driving the 135 for a week, I was driving the R32 for another week. So that meant I got to have the best of both worlds. Now obviously if I could afford it, I wouldn't have gone to that arrangement. I would have bought it myself, but because I didn't want to have my money tied up in 2 cars, and I didn't feel like I was financially ready for that, I stuck to my M135i. I think that's quite a good we don't call it a business plan, but a sort of buying ownership scale, I guess, or ownership model, because you get to split everything, maintenance costs, running costs, everything, and you get to share the car, because realistically you're one man or woman and you can only drive one car at a time. So having multiple cars almost doesn't make sense. By splitting it means you get to you know, share whichever cars you drive. So I really think it works. But one thing I will say is you need to make sure that you're both on the same page. Like for example, one of you might be into modifying the car further, one of you might not be. One of you cares about using, you know, the best parts possible, like you want Michelin tires, this, that. The other person might not want that, and at the end of the day they're paying half of everything that goes on the car. So if you guys don't see eye to eye, there's going to be clashes. So that's one thing I'd warn you right now. If you're going to do this thing where with a friend or a sibling you decide to go halves on a car, But apart from that, the scale itself makes sense. Obviously, logistically, you guys have to live quite close to each other or willing to travel when you want to switch cars when it's your turn and when it's their turn. We bought it with the intention that we're gonna have the R32 for 1 year, you know, buy it, enjoy it for a year, then sell it. If one of us want to keep the car, we could discuss that, but the minimum term agreement was a year. That's what was agreed. We tried doing everything in black and white to obviously avoid conflict, because sharing a car is not easy. So we tried as many things as we could to be in written writing, and for the most part it did work. So we bought the car for about 7.5 grand, and it had done 124,000 miles at the point. And the thing about the R32 is it obviously has a timing chain, and that's probably the biggest cost to ownership, replacing that chain when it needs doing, and it needs doing about 120,000 miles. So when we bought the car was, you know, low road tax, such a beautiful spec and color, the way it was modified, everything was perfect about the car. So we, at the time, we just thought, you know what, we're willing to take a punt on it. It's a timing chain, and then it's not like a belt where it's going to snap. You'll have you'll have some sort of notice before it goes, you know. That was my thing. So we bought it, and we bought it knowing the timing chain hadn't been done, but that wasn't the problem as such. So we've got the car, we're driving it, and it being an old car with 124,000 miles, things started creeping up on us. So one of them was the cam cover gasket, rocker cover gasket, sorry. So that's a seal that goes around the engine block, and it was leaking oil. So literally I noticed there was just oil, deposits of oil sitting around the engine. So took it in to get replaced. Then they said the thermostat housing is leaking oil, so I had to get that replaced. Then they said, oh, you know, this is going to crop up, this is going to crop up, this is going to crop up. And that's when me and my brother sort of had a discussion, and we decided that, hold on a second, we bought this car for a year. That was the agreed plan. Now all of a sudden we're being thrown these bills for repairs in excess of £300-400 at a time, because it is a VR6 engine. A lot of the work needs the engine to get out. So we were sat there thinking, this isn't really worthwhile for a year. Like, this is going to be a very expensive 1 year if we commit to this car and we get all this work done. So we obviously had a discussion, and we even spoke about obviously the timing chain. That's something that we knew could come up, and that was the biggest cost. So ultimately we had a discussion, and we decided that, you know what, well, we both don't want to be invested into this car 50-50 and have these future repairables come our way. And that's where we made the decision that, you know what, I think we should sell up. Literally the issues cropped up just 6 weeks after we bought the car. We didn't even get to go through a honeymoon phase with the car before finding these things out. So it was a massive blow to us. My brother didn't even get to really enjoy the car like that, because he's got 2 kids and they didn't really like the loud noise. So when he was driving the car, he was driving it so casually, there was no point of him driving an R32. Whereas I was obviously enjoying the car, but to be fair, the time I owned the R32, I was putting no money away in my savings, none at all, because between this M1355i and the R32, my money was going somewhere. Labour is so high on the R32 because the engine has to come out every single time you want to do something in it, because it's such a compact engine bay. That's why the Golf R is a 2-litre, because they realised that, hold on a second, we can't have a 3.2-litre VR6 in this small engine bay. And yeah, that's basically the story of it. That's why the R32 is really not really much of a thing, as well as emissions obviously, but it's just uneconomical in every way, shape, or form. It's uneconomical on fuel, road tax, and then in terms of maintenance work as well and repair work. So like I said, with everything on that car being a question mark in terms of repair work, specifically the timing chain and the things that have cropped up, and the more things that were eventually going to crop up, we just sold the car. There was nothing more we could do. I wanted to sell the car to someone who I knew would look after the car, and that's exactly who the buyer was. He had an R32 before, so I knew that in terms of maintenance work and repair work, he would be on top of it, because he really wanted an R32, so he knew what he was getting into, and he's had one before. Here I am with the story of owning an R32, but with no R32 on the driveway. And it's one of those things, is it better to have loved or lost, or better to have not loved at all? I don't know actually, because my heart does ache for the R32. It does. Having it for that short period makes me want it even more, because I never got to truly enjoy it enough. I mean, it was only three months ownership, and when you consider the fact that we were sharing the car weekly, I had the car for what, 6 weeks, literally 6 weeks. I got to drove it. And even then, towards the end, we barely drove it because we were so wary that we didn't want any further problems to come, that we didn't really drive it like that. Literally, I had a choice at the time: get rid of the 135 and get the R32, or have both, or don't get the R32. I went with the option of having both on my driveway, and it didn't work out. But I'm very thankful to God that I still have my M135i because I love this car. So that's one thing that I'm very grateful about. I don't think I would have gone with option A, which was sell the 135 for the R32, because I've just not had this car for long enough at the time, and I wasn't ready to walk away from it. I just wasn't. The other thing also is, you might be thinking, we bought an R32, how can you be surprised that there's ownership costs, etc.? So the honest truth is, we bought for $7.5 grand. In hindsight, we paid too much for the car considering the mileage, etc. We overpaid because of the modifications more than anything. That's why the seller was so strong in regards to the price that we paid for it, because he essentially added up the cost of mods he done to the car. He bought the car for £5,000 in 2019 and he sold it for just under $7.5 grand to us 2 years later. And he hadn't done the major jobs like the timing chain, etc. So when you add all of that up, the car just wasn't viable for us, because we were only going to own it for 1 year. If we were going to own it for long periods, then yes, doing the timing chain would have been a very good shout, and we could have had a very beautiful R32 on the driveway. But for 1 year ownership, it just wasn't worth it, and that's why the car's no longer here. And like I said, there's a part of me that yearns for it. I'd be lying if I said it doesn't. But I don't know whether to be happy that I got to enjoy it for that short period and move on, or if I should look at maybe getting another one. I really don't know. Let me know in the comments if you think I was right to get rid of the car, or if you think I shouldn't have bought in the first place, or you think I should have sold the 135 and gotten there. Whatever you guys have to comment on this matter, let me know. But ultimately, the R32 came and went. It was so quick that I couldn't even make a video on it at the time when I had the car. And I'm telling you this now, so many months later, because the car Nitty schedule has been a bit crazy. But I hope you enjoyed this video and the insight that I'm giving. I do think shared ownership is a really good ownership model, something that I think you guys should consider if you want to get a car but you can't afford it. But like I said, just make sure you guys are of the same mindset and buy a car that's suitable. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like, comment, share and subscribe, and I'll see you soon on the next one. Take care.